really uncover what it is they're truly looking to solve. You're not trying to pepper them with just whatever tool set you have. You're trying to understand if there's a match between the issue that they're facing and the technology that you've developed. Hi, I'm Andrew Moore, VP of Sales at LipDub AI. I'm also a mentor at TBDC. And so I've been fortunate enough to spend the last 16 years in various capacities on the sales and business development side of things at a number of different organizations, growing from very small to much bigger than that, and I haven't looked back since. I think at the end of the day, sales is about solving problems and building relationships and establishing a credibility and trust with the people that you're looking to serve. And so again, I found that very rewarding, and I think the key to being successful in sales, at least from my perspective, is having genuine care for the issues that your clients are up against. They have a job, they have a mandate to do, and if you can play a role providing value to making their lives easier, making their work more successful, that's the sweet spot. That's where problems get uncovered, that's where problems get solved, and that's where ultimately everyone's winning in that case. And so the motivation to do that as much as you can is the really kind of exciting, rewarding part about working in sales. I think a lot of it has to do is just making sure you're going above and beyond on a daily basis to serve their purposes. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our clients, and we operate in a very competitive marketplace. AI, as I'm sure anyone can appreciate, is moving very quickly, so you have to stay on your toes. But one of the ways that we're differentiating ourselves is by giving that extra level of TLC to our client relationships. This is more than just a software transaction, more than a transactional sale. We have genuine care for the creative vision of their interest. We have genuine care for what problem they're looking to solve with our technology. And we're solving a number of different problems across a number of different use cases. But at the end of the day, I think the commonality is that we're interested in learning from them so that we can improve and offer a better quality of service, both from a product but personal attention standpoint too. So we take that very seriously, and I think any good company should consider that to always be a potential for differentiation from their competitors, is that extra level of care, which really goes a long way. And it's rewarding when you hear that feedback, like, hey, thank you guys, we appreciate you guys going above and beyond. And part of that is just a cultural thing that we've managed to manifest within the business, so that it's not just sales, it's every department that's interacting with the customers. And even our engineering team takes great care in terms of building products and features that really goes that extra mile to solve what the client's ultimately looking to do. A lot of it has to do with training and mindsets, and I don't want to sound kind of hoity-toity by saying this, but a lot of it comes from putting yourself in the place of the customer, right? Like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, because then you can really think about what we're looking to solve, what we're attempting to solve from their perspective. We don't go in with necessarily a common message every single time, because how we benefit clients changes depending on who you're talking to. There's obviously a lot of shared interests and shared capabilities across the board. But a lot of it has to go with being inquisitive in terms of your interaction with the client. Really uncover what it is they're truly looking to solve. You're not trying to pepper them with just whatever tool set you have. You're trying to understand if there's a match between the issue that they're facing and the technology that you've developed. And to the extent that there's not a perfect fit there, those are actually opportunities for us to learn about, so that our product team can make any required adjustments or changes to the product capabilities. If we're not too far off what they're asking for, they feel like we're giving them an extra level of care. In this case, it goes a long way. So our genuine interest is, again, about solving their problem as best we can. And so being equipped to uncover those areas that we can provide benefit that might not be obviously available on the surface level is a key part. For scaled-up businesses, I think compensation from a sales perspective is fairly simple, right? There's a combination of base salary, there's a combination of variable compensation. You can play around with the percentages, but it's fairly cut and dry in a lot of cases. Where it's not is in the world of startups. You're not necessarily selling a product that even has an understood market at this point. Forecasting is very difficult in those early days. You can't set variable comp necessarily, setting your watch to a certain dollar quota in this case. And so quicker you can get to that spot, I think the easier things are gonna be. But in that in-between land, which oftentimes startups are in, you have to get a little bit more creative. And so a lot of it has to do with building up to getting to a spot where you have predictable revenue and predictable forecasting capabilities. The way that I've got around that, help bridge that gap in many respects, is by motivating certain behaviors. So in the early days, maybe it's the number of phone calls that you're making, maybe it's the number of meetings that you're having. It's not necessarily tied to the end result, because you can't get there quite yet. It's tied to the behaviors and things that will push you forward, that can be compensated, that can be motivating to your sales team in this case, so that they're made whole through their efforts, because those efforts in the early days are tremendously valuable. So you have to find ways to kind of bridge the gap from a predictable model to one that might need a little bit of tinkering along the way. And then readjusting adjusting it accordingly. Maybe this quarter our goal is to book the most number of meetings we can. Maybe next quarter the goal is to make sure each of our existing customers is reaching a certain net promoter score. It changes all the time, right? So you have to have that flexibility kind of structurally built into your compensation models. And also thinking about some shared targets in the early days. It's very difficult to say chop a territory up so it's equitable for each of your team members. And so there could be a combination of team targets. If we're all getting there together, then we're all winning. You have to be a little bit delicate with like the team notion of things in certain cases, but it's another lever that can be pulled on. It's another marker that can be actioned on in terms of a compensation strategy in the early days. And I'm spending a lot of my time in the AI space, and it's a whirlwind. There's things changing literally every day, right? And so you have to stay on top of your toes. I think there's many different ways with the platforms available to us. Obviously, LinkedIn's pretty standard one for me. I think it would be true for most people in this case. I'm just being impressed at the content you're seeing on LinkedIn, and so I find it to be a helpful tool. It's kind of the first place I check in the morning. I think tools like X, formerly known as Twitter, is a great spot, right? Because there's communities that are forming, there's hashtags that are building, there's these networks that are kind of organically taking place and on platforms like X as an example. So I find that to be a really interesting one. Those are kind of my two major ones in this case. You have to really understand what you're doing it for, right? Sales is an interesting world, right? There's the coin operated side of sales, which is I want to go after a big commission check, and I understand that, and that's a big part of it for sure. But from a sales leadership standpoint, it goes a level that's deeper than that. I think you have to truly care about the people on your team. You have to care about putting team members in a place where they can excel and take that next step forward. Properly serve as a mentor. Oftentimes sales leaders aren't in that position for the rest of time, and so to make the most of your time in that spot, you want to leave a mark, and I think that mark is left when people can say good things about the experience working with individuals, the experience working within that team, and then creating conditions to optimize success for all team members. People are motivated and have different personalities and are just different across the board. So how do you get people kind of rowing in the same direction? Those are big things that you think about, and that's where, again, a lot of the true joy in terms of the role ultimately kind of manifests itself.